Welcome, guys, back to the Grateful Living podcast. Today, I'm thankful to have Hanson Grant with me. Hanson is the founder of ThinkBoard, a company that creates dry erase films that turn any surface into a whiteboard. Hanson, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, thankful to have you on. So, set the scene for us. Take us back to the beginning of, where you grew up, your family situation, and, what type of kid you were.
Definitely. Ever since I can remember, I've been selling things or an entrepreneur in some way, shape, or form before even knowing what that word meant. I think I probably had about three or four good quality businesses before knowing that word.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, my both my parents were self-employed when I was growing up. They had their own family business from when I was 4 years old. So from the beginning, I've been surrounded by a different way of thinking and just kind of seeing what that can bring to a family and a lifestyle and a relationship and everything. And my parents actually they kind of took it from a different approach. They weren't trying to build like a family business empire. They were more just using it to allow themselves the freedom and flexibility to raise their kids how they wanted to. And we ended up selling our house in one of the bigger neighborhoods, I guess, and downsizing to a townhouse and buying an RV with the rest of the money.
Yeah.
And that prompted us to do four back-to-back summer long family RV trips around the
Wow.
country.
That's awesome.
And those were some of the most life-shaping years of my life. And all of us kids were like, okay, how can we do this? How can we possibly recreate an experience like this for our kids someday? And it was either become a teacher or be self-employed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are the two options. And I ended up applying to schools for entrepreneurship, Babson, or like to become a teacher at some state schools in New York. And really didn't know it at the time, but I was running my own t-shirt company. I sold gum in middle school. I sold sandpaper to my
Yeah.
tech students in eighth grade. Um, I ended up selling car decals and posters and all this stuff. And because my parents' graphic shop, I was able to get my hands in early. And while applying for schools, still didn't realize like the crazy entrepreneurial tendencies that I had as a child from age 5 until I was 18. Once I stepped on campus at Babson, though, I
Wait, can
realized,
I stop you for a second?
yeah, totally.
Y- you know, so that's an interesting background with the family business. I'm curious,
Yeah.
you know, what age did you realize that like do you actually I'm not even sure if you have the self-awareness to know
Definitely not.
cuz for most people their parents work for, someone else. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, did you know from the beginning, like as a young kid, that like, oh, like my parents have a business, or when did that?
I think I think it was almost forced into me when I took all these tests of like, what should you be when you're older? And there was never an answer that I was satisfied with. It was always like chiropractor or teacher or something. And yeah, I would talk to my friends' parents and they're like, oh, like, what are you going to go to school for? I was like, I don't know. Like, I kind of want to start my own business. And they're like, what kind of business? Like, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't care. And
Yeah.
fast forward, I sell whiteboards right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So clearly it didn't matter the type of business, but I was interested in it. And it wasn't until I stepped on campus at Babson with a bunch of other entrepreneurs that I realized, oh, okay, so there's other people out there that did more than just a lemonade stand in elementary school and middle school. And I know Wes on your podcast earlier, I'm pretty sure he rented out locker space.
That's awesome.
And I know friends that had like 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 a submarine sandwich business in middle school. And like all of these students I kept meeting had these similar backgrounds that I did. Different desires and drives for why, but that was kind of the first moment of self-awareness of, okay, I actually found myself in a place where I feel like I belong now.
So
Um,
that's interesting to me because I'm curious what was your drive as a kid, for doing the was it I don't want to, have a part-time job and so this is how I'm going to make money, or what was your as a kid, what was your drive in starting those like t-shirt businesses and things like that?
so I thought I wanted a go-kart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I turned like 14 and I was like, okay, maybe I'm saving up for a car. And then I kept saving money and I kept selling random things and stuff on eBay and stuff from my parents' shop and stuff like that. And then I ended up having more money than I needed for my first car. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'm saving for college now.
Oh,
And never really had too much of a why I was trying to make all that money in mind, other than like the next goal, which I ended up oversaving for each time. Um, but what's interesting is at 14, I took a job as a snowboard instructor up at my local ski mountain.
yeah.
And the really cool thing about that is I could go in and teach skiing or snowboarding for 2 hours, make 7.25 an hour, and come out of there with a $15 paycheck after working with 6 8-year-olds for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Pretty brutal, pretty fun, but
Yeah.
a lot of work for $17 or whatever. The next day I'd go into my dad's office and I'd have an order from the local hockey team that wanted 100 t-shirts.
Mm.
And I would design them, I'd print them, I'd press them and sell them for maybe $8 a piece, which is super cheap. And they would cost me like $4 a piece and I'd make $400.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, so one day I can make $400 in a night. The other day I make $15. And I got to really see, like, wow, teaching skiing is a passion job for me. That is so fun. And then teaching or working as an entrepreneur, selling whatever it is where I'll make my bread and butter. And it was really fun to be able to have that dynamic. And then also at 14, be able to witness all of my friends getting jobs in a similar manner, making minimum wage in New York at the time, 7.25 an hour, and realizing how slow it took to actually build any sort of savings or wealth of any sort. Um, so I really got that perspective at 14, and that was probably a really shaping part of the journey that said, okay, like there's definitely easier ways to make more money that are pretty fun, but then also leave room for stuff like, passion job or volunteering and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. No,
yeah,
that's a great.
very, very interesting chain of events that lined up for that kind of perspective.
No, that's a great story, and that yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of your perspective. Um, so I guess yeah, no, you were about to talk about Babson. So yeah, go ahead. I cut you off then.
All good. So I took a gap semester, came out to California for 4 months, worked as a maid at Yosemite Lodge, and then worked as a ski instructor at Squaw Valley in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
And both those experiences were very interesting because they told me this is what I could be doing if I wasn't going to go to school. I could work in a national park, I could be a ski instructor, had a great community of people, but I kept bumping into people on the chairlifts that were skiing on a Tuesday next to me, and it was a powder day. And I'd say, like, how are you here skiing midweek? And they'd say, oh, well, I'm in finance and I just make a couple trades a week. And then like I get to kind of do my thing. Or like, oh, I own a small accounting firm in Tahoe City, or really just own anything locally. And I kind of decided at that moment, I don't care. I don't need to have like a crazy successful business. I could just own a bagel shop in the local town. And as long as I could take off that Tuesday powder day, then that would be happiness for me. So because I came into Babson a semester late, in my mind, I barely made it in. So in my mind, I wasn't going to get good grades. And I came in with that approach of, I don't care what happens. I just know this is the goal that I'm working towards. So ended up sitting in front of the class, participated, was very engaged in all the classes, and naturally with that mindset, did very well in school, and just really started to fall in love with each subject. And that,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah, totally.
That's such a unique story. Is it there's an element of like I guess you have a lack of fear in terms. I mean, I don't know a lot of 18-year-olds that are just going to, Yosemite and being a maid out in, you know what I'm saying? And like I guess also from your parents' perspective, they must have provided a lot of support. They didn't judge you on, because I mean, I guess everybody that I grew up around with was just always straight path and, it was
Yeah.
graduate at 18, start college at 18, so
And yeah, I mean, in hindsight, the most incredible piece of that was just breaking away from that traditional path for just 4 months. My mom actually worked in Lake Tahoe at a different ski mountain for 2 years in her 20s after school, and then went down and worked in Yosemite as well. So when I was presented with this 4 month opportunity, I was thinking, oh, I could volunteer here. What's going to look good on my resume? Maybe I should take classes. Maybe I should try to get into Babson in the fall because like I want to go and I want to be normal. And I was sitting on the boat with my dad one day. We were coming back from camping, and he's like, "Go have fun. Like you've got this 4 month window. Just go explore." So my parents really did encourage that.
wow.
And yeah, it was uncomfortable. It was very difficult because all of my friends were going to college and they were having that like quintessential freshman year college experience, and all of my friends kind of stopped answering my phone calls and texts, and they were in their own bubbles and their own worlds, which was wonderful, helped me get into my own, but was difficult. But I did have that history of my mom doing that in the past, and my dad did summers in Alaska in his 20s. And so it was just kind of ingrained in us that like this is something you do, even though it was definitely uh, a step out there and kind of uncomfortable.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, continue. You were talking about
So
Babson.
yeah,
Yeah.
we got a long ways to go. I haven't even started the business yet. And that's okay. That's the fast part. I can skip through that. But so so yeah, I came into Babson and just wanted to learn. Again, I came out of high school and my parents were always like, "Oh, like I wish I could sit in class and learn what you learned." And I was like, "I don't get it." Like, no, you don't. And so my journey at West was pondering that question. Like, I'd love to approach education the same way my parents see it, and I don't quite get it. And by the time I got to Babson, I realized I hadn't been in a class since May, and now it was January, and I was in a class. I was in accounting, and it wasn't the best subject, but I really did enjoy it, and I kind of understood where they were coming from. Of oh, this is really fascinating to learn about this, and every day after my classes, I'd call my dad. I'd be like, "Hey, like, do we know what our inventory turnover days are?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" But I'm glad you're learning this. So I got to apply things immediately to the family business. Then at Babson, there's a freshman year business that everybody starts. The first semester you brainstorm and come up with a feasibility plan. The second semester you actually run the business. So then I got to have my learning at Babson in parallel with the family business, and now this other business we started. And we ended up having like one of the most successful student businesses at Babson that's ever gone through the program in the last 30 years. And we just sold sunglasses, but the Boston Marathon bombing happened. So we printed Boston Strong on the side. The project, you were supposed to donate the money at the end of the semester. So we donated to the One Fund and ended up getting all this press. We had all these online sales. We sold 900 pairs of sunglasses. We made like $6,000 in profit and donated that all back. And it was a blast. We had 20 different students working on the project with us. And we kind of looked at each other. My best friends were running the company with me. We looked at each other afterwards like, that was fun. It's kind of easier than I thought. we should do that again.
Yeah.
So we decided the beginning of sophomore year, every Saturday, every Thursday night, we'd go out and party. Every Saturday night, we'd stay in and just brainstorm business ideas. And with that, we needed a whiteboard. And I decided, oh, like I've got these films and vinyls and stuff from my parents' graphics company. Let me go back. I know there's some whiteboard ish films. And I went back and there's a super thin whiteboard film that was permanent and it was meant to like laminate over signs. And I said, that's not going to work. It's going to destroy the wall. So I ended up walking around the office with a whiteboard marker and I just marked up a bunch of different pieces of vinyl. One of them was clear and removable and it kind of worked. So I cut it up and I brought it back to my dorm room and we just started brainstorming on it and stuck it massive on the wall. And a few weeks go by and ideas start flowing in. And I'm in this epic class that I took at Babson that was really fueling the entrepreneurial juices. And enough friends started coming into my room saying, these ideas on the wall, they're okay. But like, this thing's really cool. Like, where can I get one? And I was like, oh, I just cut it up from like this roll of vinyl. Let me get my dad to ship over a roll. So I bought a roll of the vinyl and just had it under my bed at Babson. And we just start cutting them up for friends.
Wow.
And being at Babson, the environment was so like the desire to start the next Uber was there, not the desire to have a small little whiteboard business.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt insecure that, okay, this can't be my actual business. This is just like a hobby and it's making me some extra cash. But it quickly turned into something real that I couldn't really stop, which was cool. I was never really pushing the product. It was just kind of pulling me along. And so I'd give them out to friends. And then friends of friends said, hey, I saw this in so and so's room. Can I buy one? And I'm like, sure, like $20. And then sell it to them. And then I started packaging them up and then ended up creating a little bit of inventory. And by the second half of sophomore semester, I was selling kind of regularly. Ended up deciding I launched a website, made some videos, and kind of took the whole approach of I just want to learn from this project. The same way I've been applying what I knew at Babson to my family business, I want to just keep using this as a tool to keep learning. So I decided I'm going to start a Kickstarter because that sounds like a cool, hip thing to do right now. And that'd be a really cool learning experience.
Yeah.
And so we had in one of my entrepreneurial classes at Babson, we had a final project to make a Kickstarter video. And so we made the Kickstarter video for ThinkBoard, ended up redoing it over the summer, but launched that successfully. And my parents kind of were, I mean, my family business sells these massive printers that are tens of thousands of dollars, and they sell a lot of material that goes along with it. They have, excuse me, 10 employees. So my dad is looking at me like, you're gonna start a business selling just this one whiteboard product. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And he's like, okay. And my mom's like, I believe in you. So my deal with them, and this, there's history with these comments, is that my dad didn't end up completing college. So he kind of was forced into sales / entrepreneurship because he didn't feel like he could maybe get another job somewhere else. And so he was really excited that I was at Babson. I was going to get a good degree. I was going to land a good job, despite the entrepreneurial tendencies of the entire family, which was interesting. But I said, hey, look, I'm not going to beg my friends and family to fund this Kickstarter. But if it gets the $10,000 that I'm asking for just organically, I'm going to keep going with the business. And if it doesn't, I'll shut it down and I'll get a good internship next summer. But sophomore summer, I felt like that was a perfect window. There's no expectations to get an internship, so I'm going to try it. And the Kickstarter ended up being successful. I think I only knew 20% of the people that funded it. And to me, that was a huge win because that was market validation. That said, there's 100 or 200 people out there that think this product's cool and want it for their room or for their office or whatever. So that ended up happening. I gotta fast forward through a lot of the business stuff because I mean I don't have to tell the whole story, but there's a lot of ups and downs. Pretty much the big turning point after that was Babson realized like, oh, here's a new startup that just came out of Babson, ThinkBoard, and the local press was looking for a story to highlight, and they highlighted ThinkBoard, and we filmed, and it ended up going on Boston wide TV, and we got the same amount of orders overnight as we did during the entire Kickstarter, and that
Wow.
kind of really kicked off this beginning of consistent sales and the brand growing in Boston and becoming something kind of substantial. So
Was that press you reached out to, or did they found you?
they found me. So
Yeah.
they reached out. Since Babson's got a bunch of entrepreneurs, they'll like sometimes uh, writers, journalists, whatever, will reach out to Babson's marketing team and say, "Who you got?
Yeah, yeah.
Who's new?" And that helped a lot because yeah, we got an Entrepreneur magazine because of that experience. But then also a lot of other press through the same kind of medium. So
You
yeah,
know,
that definitely helped.
yeah, you started sophomore year. I'm curious, how did you manage going to school and running the business?
So what was interesting is, and this plays into a lot of me sitting here in California at the moment, uh, 3,000 miles away from operations.
Yeah.
um, right after the Kickstarter, I was already planning to study abroad. I'd already applied before even starting the business, so there's no way this whiteboard business is getting in the way of my study abroad experience. So I ended up going abroad. We filmed one day, and then a week later it aired. And I had no idea it was going to be. I had no idea it was going to blow up. So my sister was like, "Hey, yeah, like I'll go in once a week and ship out an order because we got 200 orders with the Kickstarter. Those were fulfilled over the summer. I thought maybe some people would reorder, some people from Babson would order. It'd be very slow. The week, the first week of my study abroad, I'm sitting in China and I turn my phone on and it's like 10 a.m. So it's 10 p.m. over there. And my phone just starts buzzing like crazy. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, how are these orders coming in? And it was that episode that just aired. And I called my sister the next day. I was like, hey, so remember how it took us 3 weeks to fulfill 200 orders with the Kickstarter? And she's like, yeah. I was like, we just got 200 orders last night. And she's like, nah, I quit. There's no way I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, like here I am sitting in China, so far away. There's no shot. Like, I'm not going to fly back and fulfill these orders. So fortunately, my mom and brother ended up going in that semester and they fulfilled some of those orders, most of those orders. Then there was another Christmas rush. They aired that episode again and didn't tell me. So my whole family's pissed at me. They're like, "You're hanging out." And I was in Thailand at the time. Like,
Yeah.
"You're hanging out in Thailand on Christmas, and we're over here shipping out whiteboards for you."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, it's not gonna happen again." So I was very motivated to like streamline that part of the operations. So I ended up hiring a local intern from my high school to go in every day after school and ship out orders. And then we needed two, and then we needed three, and the business kept going. And that was the first step at like, okay, I did this whole semester with my mom and brother fulfilling. Now I'm going back to Babson and I don't want to fulfill anymore. So I want these interns to do it. And they had great learning experience and they learned a ton and I paid them.
Yeah.
And um yeah, that was the first step of like, whoa, like now I'm just doing sales and marketing and I've got these people doing the operations. And then ended up hiring another intern to do customer service. And it just kind of built into this like massive intern team, which was a little unsustainable because we needed something more legit. So ended up winning a competition at Babson, got some seed money, um, ended up getting into Mass Challenge and Accelerator. And during that time decided, okay, I'm gonna beef up the operations a little bit. So we launched on Amazon. We moved fulfillment to a fulfillment center, which was a family friend, and they had their own warehouse and everything. And then we outsourced our accounting as well, and we took on a marketing partner. So at like literally between the end of junior year and the start of senior year, we outsourced almost everything in the business to specialists and launched on Amazon. And sales just took off because we launched on Amazon's Launchpad program, which at the time was brand new. They were highlighting startups and they were putting a lot of press towards the top products. And we happen to be one of the top 10 best-selling products on the platform.
Wow.
So I'm freaking out. Senior year, like I'm just chilling now because operations are happening, accounting's happening, marketing's kind of being tested, customer service is happening still by one of the interns. And I'm just going around Boston networking and like having the time of my life. And sales were just going crazy. And at the time, I was still not certain that ThinkBoard was going to be my full-time job. I was probably making 4 or 5 grand a month in profit and was still questioning that because the surrounding of everybody else at Babson getting jobs paying them 60, 70, 80 grand and doing things like consulting, which sounded so fun. And I was getting swayed by that a little bit. And I was, going back and forth, which is shocking. And I tell a lot of entrepreneurs this, that even when I was making thousands of dollars per month in profit, I was still not certain if I should pick this career path or not, because I felt like graduation was such a launching point. Now I realize the experience of the business definitely is more of a launching point than just a bachelor's degree. But
I mean, we all have that fear that is it a fad or is it real?
yeah,
And you're a young kid at that time.
yeah. And my dad was still kind of like, hey, like if an opportunity comes up, like you might want to consider it. Don't be closed-minded to it. I'm like, I'm not going to be, but like, I think this is a really cool opportunity in front of me. And so I committed. I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I ended up hiring my best friend and like, we were going to do it together. And we just started paying ourselves and things were going well. And then Amazon reviews came flooding in from Christmas and they were all 1 stars. So
Yeah.
our 4.5 star product quickly went to a 1 star product or 2.5 star product. And it was like the biggest wake up call of like, oh, we should have had better instructions of how to use this. We should have looked more into the adhesive because we didn't realize a change in humidity would change things. We should have had a better product that had the better erasability because the quality wasn't up to par. And like what we realized is that on a website sale, 19 out of 20 would be fantastic. Everybody would be happy. But that 5% would say like, hey, it didn't work for me. And we'd be like, oh, cool. Like, let me send you another one with like slightly stronger adhesive. And they'd be like, cool, thanks. And it worked. On Amazon, a 5% failure rate when 1 out of 100 people maybe leave a review means you're getting a lot of negative reviews.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest challenge with Amazon. And I saw so much success with Amazon during that first semester that I needed that machine to work again because it was just so amazing, automated, clean, easy. So we, Ken and I looked at each other and said, okay, like we're now losing money every month. We're graduating in a month. I think we can turn this around. And we ended up winning another competition in Atlanta that month, which was amazing. And it was kind of like, cool, like here's a cushion that we can use to work off of for the next summer. We joined another accelerator program and we started working on the product. And that was when we changed everything in the business. Before it was, you asked about managing time in school. Before it was the Tim Ferriss model from the 4 Hour Work Week, like no live chat, no phone number, like you can't reach out to us. Like we just kind of sell you the product and it just kind of happens. And having everything kind of in order senior year allowed me to focus more on school and continue getting good grades because I still cared about the classes.
Yeah.
Which was like foreign to other entrepreneurs. They're like, how do you like, I don't care about school. Like I'm just doing this. And I'm like, I'd rather get a good GPA so I could actually get a job if I needed to.
Yeah.
And then also run this business.
Yep.
And then also have a social life and then also sleep. So I don't know how I balanced all of that. But I think I just had no Netflix, no video games, no social media other than business stuff. And when you cut out all of those things, it's pretty easy to sleep 8 hours a night, hang out with your friends, spend a couple hours a day on a business and, do the minimum amount to get the good grades in class.
Yeah, yeah.
um, so anyways, ended up graduating magna cum laude, which was awesome. And that was like my safety net going into this business. And that summer, we really redefined the whole company, saying we're going to focus a lot more on the brand, and we're going to be out there for our customers. We're going to have a live chat that pops up. We're going to engage with them. We're going to talk to them. We're going to hear their feedback, understand how we can improve the product. And from 2016 on till now, we've been just constantly listening to what our customers love and what our customers don't love. And we've tweaked the product now 9 different times to create the adhesive that works absolutely perfectly, corners that don't curl up, think boards that don't bubble in the middles after long-term use, and products that our customers are blown away that they can erase after 6 months and say, oh my God, like normally whiteboards, you can't leave markers on overnight. And so we've created like the highest quality whiteboard we possibly could, purely because I don't like to do marketing and I don't want to sell a product I don't believe in. So this way, our customers are so thrilled with our products that they'll consistently recommend us to other customers and companies. So somebody walks into a co-working space, they say, wow, that's really cool. You can write directly on the walls. And they say, yeah, we've had these for 2 years and they're still this clean. And then we get into another co-working space or another office, or that person graduates into a 10-person company, and then they end up decking out their whole office with think boards. So um, I think that's a much more organic, authentic, stable, recession-proof, profitable way to run a business. So we've really just focused on creating the highest quality product we possibly could, um, and having our customers be our advocates. So
Yeah.
uh, that's kind of, I mean, there's a lot more in the story, but that's kind of like a summary of how we got to where we are and why we're where we are today.
Yeah, I'm curious, you know, I've seen you work with schools and things of that nature. Uh, can you talk about some keys to pitching, new clients or new school districts? I mean, especially, the principal you might be pitching is 25 or 30 years older than you. How do you, a lot of entrepreneurs end up being pretty young, and
Yeah.
they have to go in and, if you have any tips or advice on that?
So I think because of the changing climate and Shark Tank, that people are starting to realize that the Facebooks, the Snapchats, the like every major company of today was started by somebody pretty young. I mean, the average age for an entrepreneur is still about 40 years old, but I think people are starting to catch on that a 20-year-old can create something magnificent.
Yeah.
Uh, and but it's definitely challenging. I mean, I've got a friend who said that he used to fly overseas to do different projects and would hire like an older project manager, and he would just be sitting there like acting as if he's an intern, and he would have the older person conduct the deals, which makes sense on like a project that size, but it's kind of unfortunate, that that's the way it is. So a lot of our stuff is virtual. They have no idea who we are. If they go to the About Us page, then yeah, they do.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the quality of the product is what sells them. Our confidence in it as well. A lot of schools really want some sort of warranty. They're sold all the time, and they are always buying products that get outdated quickly or don't work. And just that confidence that it's going to last is what's important. And then hearing from other principals, other testimonials, and stuff like that. So we've got a school in Hopkinton that they have replaced every whiteboard in their school with ThinkBoards now. They've been a client of ours since 2016. And every time we've created a better version of the product and one of theirs fails, we'll just swap it out for free. So they're getting happier and happier as customers, and their school's looking better and better. And they used to have whiteboard paint. So now if any school has whiteboard paint or any co-working space, we can say, hey, this school used to repaint their boards every 6 months because they were that bad.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and we replaced them in 2016, and most of them we haven't had to replace since. And just that one sentence is normally enough confidence that somebody says, all right, that makes sense. And then we warranty it for 5 years and have never had to have a warranty claim. Um, so yeah, that definitely makes sales much easier when you're so confident in the product and you're not trying to like pull a fast one or anything. It's just like, I've got a good product. It's way cheaper than anything else you're going to get. It's way better than anything else you're going to get. And here's 100 people you could talk to if you really don't believe me.
Yeah, yeah. I, am curious. Obviously, we touched on it a little bit, but you know, the way entrepreneurship is often marketed is, as you said, who's going to be the next Uber, who's going to
Mhm.
be next, and you've brought a different attitude of lifestyle entrepreneurship. Do you want to, just talk about that? And you know, because I don't think a lot of people know that that's a real lifestyle, that you could make, you know, a million in revenue, have 3 employees,
Yep,
and, still work whatever 40, 50 hours, but, just have a more normal lifestyle, and that can go for, 10, 20 years.
definitely. And that's totally what I'm aiming for. Um, it's funny. I give talks about entrepreneurship. I give talks about personal finance, and people always think I'm a millionaire just based on how I live my life, and I'm not yet. Hopefully soon, but yeah, I'm just very intentional about where I spend my time and energy, and the life I want to live. And being self-employed allows me to have that level of flexibility. So for me, my two passions outside of business are, I mean, other than family and spending time with them, would be skiing and traveling. Currently, this ski season, I'm very lucky because COVID has allowed a lot more time and flexibility, and I've skied probably 50 days so far.
Yeah.
And I can work from the chairlift, which is awesome. Or I can take calls from the lodge, or um, you know, ski in the day and work at night. So that's something I work really hard towards. And when I'm in Boston, just grinding for a few months, it's with that vision in mind. It's, I know that the work I'm putting in today will allow me to be able to do that when the time's right. Um, and traveling is the other one. And I got a taste while I was studying abroad of like, wow, like I could be in India and I can be doing the same thing. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I can be doing the same thing, and it's wonderful. And like, it doesn't matter if I'm in Boston working on my computer or if I'm in India working on my computer. It's the same thing. I just got to put in a little bit more time. And as long as there's somebody on the East Coast that's doing customer service and has the live chat running, cool. And if actually, when I'm over there, I can have the live chat running on the other side of the world, and it's even better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating that like that is kind of how things went. And then that became my motivation to keep building the business and keep automating the business and allow myself to keep traveling and working remote. So since since starting the business, I think I've been to about 35 countries.
Wow.
Um, Maybe five of them or six of them I've spent about a month or so working remote in. Most recently, Malaysia. Before that, Costa Rica, and before that, Thailand.
Yeah.
Um,
That's awesome.
so that's my drive. And I know I'm young right now. I don't have kids. I don't have a house. Um, so I'm much more flexible to do that and take advantage of that opportunity now, which I'm doing. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess living that lifestyle so intentionally towards what I like to do makes you realize you don't actually need that much money. It makes me realize like I don't need a $10 million company. I don't even need a $5 million company. I'm perfectly content with how life is right now.
Yeah.
If I can just keep going at this pace, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
I am saving a lot. I'm investing into my retirement. I'm living out my best life right now, and working on something I'm passionate about, whether it's 10 hours a week or 60 hours a week. I actually prefer working a little bit more because it's fun. I
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoy it. Things have slowed down a little bit with COVID because there's no co-working spaces and offices needing whiteboards. So I'm kind of at this place where I'm like, man, like I kind of want to be like doing more deals and stuff. And it's not about like the money. It's just like that's what I love doing. I love hopping on the phone and talking to people and helping them outfit their whole space with a new product and feeling confident in it and being so excited to tell me a month later that everything's up and it's perfect and the new members love it and stuff like that. So um, yeah. So I don't know. It's definitely tough to go back to Babson. And a lot of my friends are running these 5, 10. I've got a friend running $100 million company. um, but they all look at me like, can we trade? I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't maybe I'd
Yeah.
be interested. And it's hard for me still to wrap my brain around somebody with like a $10 million company wanting to trade with like a $1 million company, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I just get to live my 20s, and that's what people are craving. And I've known people that didn't get to, and they're in a good spot, but like maybe they could be in a better spot, like personally. And I don't think I'm willing to trade my 20s for extra money, especially when I'm self-aware to know that I don't really need all that extra money. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's cool. I don't have to like arbitrarily work for something unattainable and just work 80 hours a week to get to this point that I'm told will make me happier, you know?
Yeah. I guess, one of my final or questions would be, obviously there's going to be somebody out there who's in college or whatever, you know, at a place where you were,
Mhm.
sophomore year, making maybe, couple $1,000s a year and things of that nature. Do you have any other pieces of advice that obviously you talked about the roadblocks with Amazon, but I think that ended up being better because it forced you to create a better product.
Yep.
Does anything else stand out from your journey in terms of, if there's someone out there just starting out, maybe, 1,000 or a couple thousand a month in sales, how any advice you would give them?
Yeah, definitely. So for for somebody even before that, I always recommend start as soon as possible. The sooner, and I always treated ThinkBoard as a learning experience. Like I said with the Kickstarter early on, um, that if ThinkBoard failed by senior year, I could have started another company and I would have learned how to build an e-commerce business and go with that and scale it and get press and then fail and then do it again, like so the earlier I start, or the earlier you start, in my opinion, allows you to learn more faster. And I always felt like ThinkBoard was my MBA, while Babson was my bachelor's, and I got to do them in parallel. And I was speaking to MBA classes by junior year, which was
Yeah.
insane to me that I would be sharing my story with people who were that much more educated than I was. Um, but for somebody who's already making a little bit as an entrepreneur, and this is why I got so into personal finance, was I wanted to be able to pay myself as little as possible while still being able to save and invest in a reasonable manner. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they either don't pay themselves enough or they do, but they spend, I don't know. Like, so I kept looking at my lifestyle and what is important to me. I don't need to commute into the city because I don't have an office in the city and because the whole team works remote. So let's live out in Watertown, not in Boston. And let's save like $1,000 a month on rent. And I'll live with my friends because I actually enjoy the community. I don't need my own personal space as much as other people might. So being very intentional with each decision I made financially on those big monthly recurring items allowed me to say like, cool, like I only really need like $1,500 or $2,000 a month. Um, and then if I pay myself 3 or 4, then I'm saving and investing at like a normal rate. So just being able to be super aware of what you need to draw from the company while also caring for yourself and your savings and your investments, um, allows you to kind of live in that state of like only making a couple $1,000s a month in profit for a longer duration than feeling like you need to scale up the business super fast in order to achieve that state. So um, if I wasn't that conscious and mindful of my monthly recurring expenses, then I would definitely be needing to draw more from the company just because I thought so. And that would strain the company more and either force me to raise money or force me to work much harder to earn that. So, yeah, we never ended up raising money,
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
which is great. We just won some competitions. Um, but another thing as a college entrepreneur, press is so easy to get. It's really hard when you're, I mean, it's not really hard, but when you're 27 years old, it's not as cool of a story of, oh, 27-year-old entrepreneur does XYZ.
Yeah.
When I was 19 or 20, it was just like, hey, I'm 20 and I've got this startup. And people are cool. I want to write about that. So we were in CNN, NBC, MSNBC, Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg, literally the Today Show, like almost everything you can imagine.
Yeah.
Um, and it was awesome because everybody wanted to talk about a young entrepreneur. So if you're listening and you're, in your young 20s, whether you're in school or not, I think the press definitely helped us get out to customers in a much easier way than Facebook ads and stuff like that. Um, and we've never gotten advertising to be profitable.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, if you have millions of dollars backed behind you from a uh, VC, angel, political campaign, whatever, everybody's got the same money that's spending for your eyeballs on your newsfeed. So it's really hard from a small business standpoint to make Facebook ads profitable. So I think a lot of people have the idea that like we'll just do this and then we'll run some Facebook ads and like everything will be good because I heard Facebook ads are like the way to go.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, a lot of my friends who have millions of dollars in financing are like, yeah, I'm just trying to do some Facebook ads, but like they don't need to be profitable. It's just more like an awareness campaign.
Yeah.
And we don't have a product that has like a long-term subscription, long-term lifetime value. So we can't really invest like $100 up front to get a customer. Now, if you have a subscription business that brings in $50 a month, cool, raise some money, plow it into investments, or plow it into advertising if it works, and then hopefully that doesn't churn and uh, becomes profitable at the end. But yeah, I would be weary of like just thinking I'll just get some money and just plow it into Facebook.
Yeah, yeah. I really liked your second piece of advice, like living below, as much below your means as possible. Because I think the normal thing is to always show off, and I've got this office in Boston or things like, and it's like you can save that money and just have it be in the business or pay a part-time employee instead.
Yeah,
Um,
and show off with your lifestyle of like I don't need to work 40 hours a week because I got you have extra flexibility.
yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I appreciate that.
One of the other final questions I had, one of the things you've done is you've outsourced a good amount of your work.
Mhm.
With that, as you talk about quality and, you know, consistency is important. How do you evaluate, you know, if you outsource a customer chat or if you outsource, fulfillment, how do you evaluate the job that they're doing?
Yeah, actually, one quick question, one quick thing on the finances, then I'll jump into this.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
COVID hit a year ago, and because we had that level of flexibility within our personal finances and the business finances, it was very easy to just turn down my salary and Ken's salary like 33%. Like, boom, like we got to go into like recession mode just in case.
yeah,
And having all of my, it's not really a budget, but I just kind of have like, this is where, my health insurance and my savings and my investments and my rent and everything. And I was like, cool, like if I just turn off saving and investing for a little bit, I can just reduce my income almost by half.
yeah,
And just being able to turn that knob on one day and drastically reduce the spend of the business and allow us to survive through COVID, whether like I didn't know we were going to get a PPP loan, but
Yeah.
um, that was huge to be able to just make that decision right off the bat. But as far as outsourcing, we've gone through a lot. That's the truth. We've gone through a lot of different customer service people. We normally hire college age students to run our live chat and emails because it's only 10 or 20 hours a week. And so that's constantly churning. And we're just constantly, actually, the way we've been able to keep that consistent high quality is the person leaving ends up referring one of their friends into it. And then we get somebody who's already a lively, fun personality to recommend their friend who they vibe with. And then as long as we get somebody that's friendly and kind and understanding, we can train them in a day to understand how to handle a customer service. Um, Operationally, we've used the same fulfillment center the whole time. And that's just been a slow process of like we keep implementing slightly new things to make sure the products, like maybe the products were damaged upon arrival. Is that their fault or is that our packaging fault? It's probably our packaging fault. So like, hey, like let's try stapling the ends of the cap so the think board doesn't slide out anymore. And they're like, okay. And then we're like, let's actually put this fun tape over it instead. And they're like, okay. Like so just constant micro improvements with them. Um, Outsourced accounting. We've got a service called Botkeeper. That's a friend of mine and Boston based, also Babson. And they also have been growing and learning with the company. It's automated AI bookkeeping, and that we haven't had to change, which is awesome. And then the last thing would be like marketing, and that's been that's been our biggest challenge. We've gone through 3 or 4 different agencies. We've lost thousands of dollars. We've spent thousands more on ads. Um, it's tough, and as such a fun, lively, playful brand, maybe we just shouldn't outsource marketing. I mean, I still do all the website stuff. If we're writing blogs, I normally write that, or Ken writes those. Ken's starting to write the emails again, so like it comes from our voice. But again, advertising we've never been able to make profitable, so we spend thousands of dollars on an agency and then thousands of dollars in testing, and it hasn't really worked. So we might take a different approach to that. But yeah, that's definitely a harder one to come across. And our last agency we were with for 2.5 years, which was awesome, and they were fantastic, but they grew bigger than us now. So
Yeah.
they needed to use their capacity for other clients. Yeah, it's just a lot of feeling it out and not being sold on some glamorous whatever from an agency. But when you've got the right team, then they actually feel like part of your team. So our last agency was Ecom Allies, and Charlie is the founder, and he literally felt like our CMO. And he'd
Yeah.
hop on Zoom calls with me and Ken. We'd chat about what's going on, and it really felt like he was part of the team. So that was kind of what we needed and what we were looking for. Whereas a lot of other agencies are just like, we got this like whiteboard, sticky, yada yada yada, and we're like, no, like we got to come off this way, not that way, and like we don't want to show these photos because like that makes our product look bad, and just like the Amazon knockoffs and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's been the challenging one.
The final question I have is, you mentioned him a couple times, Ken. Obviously you guys are friends,
Mhm.
but then you also probably have business visions, and those might differ. And it affects. Maybe it affects your salary, right? Like going with a different marketing agency versus another. It might
Yeah,
affect the budget. And how do you manage friendship, business, all of that?
it's definitely challenging. So the baseline of it is Ken and I are both looking for the same kind of freedom and flexibility that ThinkBoard brings us. We both love working however many hours per week. Sorry.
You're good. You're
I
good.
don't have COVID, I promise. Um, so that's the baseline. Is we both love the life that ThinkBoard's been bringing us, regardless of how much money is coming in. Obviously, we'd love to double the business so then we can double our salaries. But we fix our incomes based on the revenue of the business. So if the business is doing well, we're doing well. If the business isn't, then we reduce our salaries. Um, but what's great about the dynamic between Ken and I is that my head is in the clouds a little bit more and his feet are on the ground. So he is more real with our launches of new products or an approach to customer service or changing the product and stuff like that. I want to make these massive changes and like do all this crazy stuff. And Ken's like, I don't know, like maybe we should think about like this, or like talk to these customers first. And so that dynamic has really been huge for the business. And he's the one that really spearheaded the approach to like changing the way we talk to the customers and get the information from them and engage with them and learn from them. That was really his doing coming into the company. Whereas I was like, I just want to like be out wherever and travel and like not have to deal with it. And that that approach that's different than mine allowed the company to learn from our customers better and engage them. And when a customer is engaged, they want to talk about the product. And when they talk about the product, we get word of mouth and we get other people buying. So like that whole shift came from our different perspectives on the business. But from a friendship and business standpoint, it's definitely lifestyle first, like making sure like every 6 months we check in and we say like, hey, like, how's this going? Like, obviously I think, wow, my throat's really, really going.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. But
No, you're good.
um, yeah, I think every 6 months we just got to check in with each other and say like, how is this? And maybe Ken's wanting to buy a house soon. So he's like, I kind of need more income coming in for that. And I said, okay, cool. Like, how can we pay ourselves more? Like what should change in the business in order to do that? And currently things are pretty automated with Amazon and e-commerce. There's definitely more outbound sales we could do for schools. So if we want to grow, we're okay, let's create a sales plan to to get into more schools and figure out how we can build out that part of the business more so we can pay ourselves more.
Yeah.
And or it's like, hey, like I kind of want to invest time in, he's learning more about copywriting right now, and that's like a passion of his. um and I'm teaching skiing on the side.
Yeah.
And so both of us right now are like, cool, like it's running how it's running. Let's invest in other passions at the moment. And then, maybe in a month or two, we'll come back and we'll deep dive into the business to grow it again. So as long as both of us are on the same page, it works. And there's been times where we haven't been on the same page and it's been stressful and it doesn't work and it's tough. But I have always said I'd rather run a company with my best friend than run a company with somebody who might be able to help the company be more successful, but wouldn't be as fun to run it with.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to take that. I mean, Ken definitely adds way more, but even if he didn't, I'd rather take that potential loss of revenue to work with him than it would be if I worked solo or with somebody else that like it wasn't as fun to run the company. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Hanson, we talked about a good amount. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't?
Um, I guess what we did with COVID was pretty interesting. I could go through that story super quick.
Yeah.
But I was in Malaysia as COVID started in January, February. And so I was experiencing then like, okay, this is how you do it. Hand sanitize, wear masks, social distance. Like they had it down in like early February. They didn't even have their first case till mid-February. So before the first case came into Malaysia, we were already like ready. And coming back to the US March 4th, I came into JFK and they were like, yeah, cool, like go right on through. Like, wait a second, have you been to Wuhan? I was like, no, but I transferred through Japan and I was in Malaysia and like all these other places with COVID. And they're like, it's fine. And I was like, okay. And I'm wearing a mask. And then like nobody else is wearing a mask. I was like, ah, shit, they're gonna think I have COVID. So I like took my mask off out of, insecurities, and rode the train in JFK, got back home, and was like, all right, like everybody buckling down. And people were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, COVID's happening. And they're like, there's like a couple cases. And Malaysia got up to 28 cases by the end of February. And within that first week I was home, New York State alone, I think went from like 20 to 500 to like 5,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still, nobody was reacting. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is really bad. So that was the point where we turned the business into recession mode because we're like, this is about to hit way harder than anybody expects. We started writing a lot of content on how we work remote. And then we started writing content on how to take your company remote because we knew everybody was about to shut down. And that allowed us to get out ahead and like start really spreading the word about ThinkBoard during that time. And people were sharing our articles, and it was really interesting. Then we decided, okay, we've got a lot of inventory. If this is going to be a recession, we want to convert that all to cash. So we ran a crazy special that ended up being pretty profitable, selling a $15 version of our product to teachers and students for work remote, for learning remote and teaching remote. So we ran all these specials and we said, buy one for 15 or buy three for 40 and you get free shipping at 40. And that became profit. That was our break-even profitability section. And we ended up running this promo for a whole month. It went crazy. Our sales went through the roof. And then we ended up converting all this inventory. So now we're sitting on this pile of cash, and people started reaching out saying, hey, there's a shortage of PPE. Like, you guys make clear plastic whiteboards. Can you make clear plastic face shields? And we said, yeah, probably.
Oh, wow.
So we reached out to our manufacturers and we said, hey, can we get like a thicker version with no adhesive? And they said, yeah, here's a roll. So we started cutting them up, and we ended up making about 6,000 face shields over the course of the next month.
Wow.
And we pretty much started a whole nother operation of face shields. But we knew it was a limited business because China's production was going to catch up by the end of April. So we said we got this 1 month window of April to just make all these face shields. And we helped hundreds, if not thousands, of people stay protected, whether it was doctors or dentists or nurses or small practices that couldn't get, state purchased PPE. So that was like super rewarding and super fun because my whole family, because we didn't have anybody else that was in our bubble, my whole family would go into our office that was shut down, the family business, and we just sit there and we'd hang out, have some drinks, wear masks, and so we didn't contaminate the PPE. But yeah, we would just hang out and make face shields all day.
Yeah.
And it was so fun and so wild. And we got like thank you notes all over the place. And that was a really fun window. And then that kind of faded down. And then I jumped into the family business a bit to like implement all these different changes of like a VoIP phone system and HubSpot and everything going through Shopify, and deep dove into building out the virtual side of that company, which was super fun. Then had a lot of fun camping and hanging out in the summer and just doing outdoor activities. And then Shopify ended up ordering one ThinkBoard for every employee. And it was like a custom, like portable version that we never created. And we ended up having this month-long project fulfilling this massive order and getting all these ThinkBoards out to all these different customers. So that was a blast as well. Just to kind of, we had like the one machine printing, another machine coding, another machine laminating, mounting them onto a board, and then another machine cutting, and then printing on the other side. It was crazy. And ended up hiring a friend of mine full time, and my sister had friends come in, and everybody got COVID tested beforehand. But it was like this really fun party,
Yeah.
fulfilling these products. And so that was our COVID experience, which it emotionally was way more of a roller coaster, but from a business standpoint, ended up helping a lot of people with the blogs early on, helping teachers and students get set up with their work from home setup, and then helping with PPE, and then fulfilling this, helping the family business, then fulfilling this massive order. Um, Obviously, there was definitely a lot more struggles mentally and emotionally, but um, it was pretty wild to be able to on a dime turn the companies down to recession mode, and then b implement all these different new opportunities. And yeah, it was fun.
What's interesting about that story is, in most cases, people seeing the founder living in Malaysia would be mad at you. But that actually became an advantage because you saw, which is it's interesting because, I have a friend in China, and he was saying the same things about, dude, like you need to wear a mask, like I'm like, the CDC hasn't like this early on, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
CDC hasn't said anything about that. But he had a vantage point, and much like you, of having gone through like a month before the US kind of got their act together,
Mhm.
and that ended up being an advantage for you and your company, and creating
Yeah.
those blog posts and things of that, and just being ready to pivot.
Mhm.
And so that's cool that, where some person might think you're just having a vacation in Malaysia, that end up might been the best decision of 2020 for your company. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
could have been.
Yeah. Um yeah, so thank you, Hanson, for being on. I just want to acknowledge you, man. It's so cool just hearing your story of, just sophomore year dorm to, running it full time and serving, big school districts and Shopify. And I mean, that's, and just living it your way. I think that, business often gets like a bad rap on, greedy people, but, you know, you can be running a business and just want, just a, a decent salary and just a decent life. And so it's cool to see that. For people that want to follow you or support Thinkboard, do you want to let them know how to do that?
Yeah, totally. So Instagram and Twitter is just thinkboard, one word. Our website is think-board.com. um, for me personally, you can add me on Facebook or LinkedIn and just
Yeah.
message me if you want to chat.
Yeah.
Happy to chat with anybody about their business. Driving all the time normally without COVID to clients. So always happy to hop on the phone with anybody and chat.
Cool.
But yeah,
Cool. Thank you so much.
no problem.